9 months into the tour, Seungmin woke up in Seattle and flatly said, "I literally slept 17 to 18 hours straight. That's not resting, that's the body shutting down." This is Stray Kids' DominATE tour, the biggest tour in K-pop history, and this is what it actually took. Before DominATE was announced, and before anyone knew how big this tour would become, Stray Kids were already deep in preparation. And I'm not just talking about rehearsing songs they'd performed 100 times before, I'm talking about conditioning their bodies, building the stamina needed to survive nearly a year on the road, and learning entirely new skills. From what we know, they started practicing for the show about a month or two before it began. And that might sound like a decent chunk of time to learn a few songs, right? But that wasn't everything to it. There were several additional performances added into the setlist on top of the fact that so many choreographies were adjusted for the scale of the stage. Each of the members' solo stages were entirely unique. New choreography, new arrangements, and for several members, completely new performance styles. It was important that each member could shine through and show absolutely everything they had to offer. Here's something interesting. Stray Kids learned the full choreography for Mountains in just a day. Felix himself said that was incredibly fast, even for them. That kind of speed only happens when everyone involved knows exactly what they're doing and trusts themselves to pull it off. The stage rehearsals started just 1 week before the first show. 1 week. That's an incredibly small window given how complex the tour's production is. This gave both the group and their backup dancers a chance to feel what the show and the choreographies were like on that stage. Because performing inside various practice rooms can only go so far. It's important that they run through it on the real deal too. If you want to see more videos about Stray Kids, just like this one, make sure to subscribe. I'm planning on making a lot more very soon, so you don't want to miss it. Now back to DominATE. Most of the songs in the setlist were adapted specifically for the live environment. They added transitions, extended different intros, and set up moments designed for engaging the audience. Touring with a live band only added to the scale and cinematic feel of DominATE. As far as we know, Stray Kids held their first dress rehearsal on August 23rd, the day before the tour started. But their preparations didn't stop once the tour began. Almost every stop included a full rehearsal the day before the official concert. And these weren't just quick run-throughs. They performed the entire set, often without costumes, just to adjust to the venue's size, sound, and stage layout. Then, on concert day, there's a final sound check, which is more like a warm-up and an event for stays. Even minutes before stepping on stage, the members are still preparing. They're stretching, warming up their voices, and going over choreography one last time. These small moments, often caught in their behind-the-scenes series, SKZ-TALKER-GO, reveal just how much energy it takes just to start the show. Think about it, 57 shows across 5 continents, 1,980,000 tickets sold. Each venue requires at least one full rehearsal before the show. Some cities hosted multiple nights. That's nearly 60 full performances in less than a year. The work never stops. It's easy to think the hard work ends once the tour begins, but really it's a daily grind. Performing nearly 60 times around the world means they have to stay ready every single day, no exceptions. At first glance, performing for nearly 3 hours every other day might sound manageable, but when you actually consider everything going on behind the scenes, like the constant travel, the intense rehearsals, the media obligations, and then the high energy performances themselves, it's clear just how draining this is. So how do they keep going? Well, one way Stray Kids stay prepared is by traveling with a dedicated physician and maintaining a full therapy room at each stop. Having professional medical support on hand helps them recover faster from physical strain, manage their vocal health, and take care of injuries before they become serious. With how intense Stray Kids choreographies are, it's practically a necessity. In Macau, about halfway through their Asia leg, Seungmin filmed inside the therapy room and explained to us this: "Performing is very physically demanding, so he's taking good care of us. Thanks to him, we were able to perform happy and healthy in front to stay." But even with professional medical support, the physical reality of the tour was unavoidable. In Bulacan, Seungmin walked into the therapy room to record Felix. He was getting a massage from the tour's traveling physician. For a few years now, Felix has struggled with back pain. It's led him to need to step to the side or ease up on choreographies during performances. And while he could take the easy way out and sit out of the shows altogether, his drive to put on a strong performance kept him in it. In Rio de Janeiro, Felix spent his off day playing games with the locals on the beach, running in the ocean, and running around with this kind of energy that didn't suggest someone nursing a chronic injury. In Lima, he did a 2-hour workout with weights. In nearly every city, he was active, not resting and not sitting out, not even visibly limited. So what does that tell you? Either Felix was performing through significant pain and hiding it well, or the treatment was effective enough to keep him functioning, but not enough to actually heal. Because healing requires rest, and rest wasn't an option right now. There were 32 shows still to go. Sitting out isn't really a choice when 40,000 people bought tickets to see all 8 members. This is where a traveling physician becomes an essential to the tour. Felix's back pain wasn't some dramatic injury that threatened the tour. Rather, it was something quieter and harder for him to convey. It's the slow accumulation of strain that comes from performing at peak intensity, night after night, without enough recovery time. The kind of injury that shows up when he's away from the public's view. By the time they reached the encore concerts in Incheon, Felix had performed through it for over a year. And he wasn't the only one managing something. Singing for nearly 3 hours, night after night, does something to your voice that's difficult to describe unless you've actually experienced it. Your vocal cords are a muscle, and like any muscle, they need rest to recover. But on a tour like DominATE, resting for a long time isn't an option. The strain shows up in different ways. Sometimes it's hoarseness that lingers into the next day, sometimes it's the feeling of your voice just not responding the way it should, and when you're performing at this intensity, pushing through high notes and rapid-fire rap verses, the damage can accumulate faster than it heals. Felix mentioned sipping honey water before going on stage to soothe his vocal cords. And chances are, the other members were doing something similar. Hydrating and warming up was essential. Some members worked closely with vocal coaches throughout the tour, adjusting techniques to protect their vocals while still delivering the performance fans expected. But here's the thing about vocal strain. You can't see it. Unlike a visible injury, the audience doesn't know when a member is pushing through a sore throat or damaged vocal cords. They just hear the performance. And that means there's no room to hold back. No space to give less than everything, even when your voice is begging you to stop. We hear about them sleeping during the day quite frequently. Whether that's while they're waiting at the venue or back at the hotel, they're always trying to get the most rest that they can. In Seattle, 9 months into the tour, Seungmin turned on his camera after waking up and said, "I literally slept 17 to 18 hours straight." It wasn't I got a good night's sleep when I got here. Yippee! Woohoo! 17 to 18 hours. That's the body forcing you to slow down. He explained it as adjusting to the time difference, which was true, but it was also 9 months into the tour. 9 months of irregular schedules, awkward travel methods, and hotel rooms that all blurred together. It's the kind of exhaustion that sleep can soften, but certainly not erase. In Mexico City, Han started filming a vlog entry about his day. Then mid-sentence, he said, "Why do I feel so sluggish?" and just stopped. The vlog cuts off and doesn't pick up until the next day. By the time they reached Madrid for the Europe leg, even the hotel beds were a problem. They were missing being home. Lino woke up one morning and explained to his camera,
침대가 너무 푹신푹신하니까 몸이 이렇게 푹 들어가서 허리가 너무 아픈 거야. 그래서 어제 소파에서 잤어.
This is 9 months in. They're not adjusting to tour life anymore. They're just enduring it. While they're touring, lacking sleep can become a stressful situation. Stray Kids need their bodies to be as ready as possible, so fighting to fall asleep at night becomes a worrying concern. And this is where sleeping extra during the day can almost become a hazard, because it can limit their ability to sleep when they need to the most. For Changbin, he's practically got a routine down in this situation. Whenever he's struggling to sleep, he goes on Netflix to watch a movie. That way, he can relax and get his mind off of whatever was keeping him up. Of course, the group tries to nap during low-risk times, like on show days or right after performances, because poor sleep can lead to mistakes or injuries, and with how intricate their routines are, they've got to be sharp mentally and physically. But here's the thing, they aren't just going with the flow of the tour. They all have plans. Ian in particular had a routine down specifically for muscle recovery. After every workout, he'd drink things infused with BCA, branched-chain amino acids, which enhance recovery and reduce fatigue. He'd stretch consistently before and after rehearsals. At night, he'd take lower body baths in the hotel to keep his muscles loose. He He was careful about his vocal cords too. Hydration, warm-ups, and rest when possible. All of it's part of his system. As for Lino, he had his own approach. While other members ate from catering and tried different meals in their foreign places, Lino consistently chose the same thing: tuna, seaweed, and rice. In city after city, across multiple continents, the meal stayed the same. Not because he was restricting himself, but because it was familiar, reliable. JYP Entertainment provided it, and he stuck with it. Other members eventually started eating it too, to the point where they actually ran out of seaweed at one point. When everything else is chaotic, having something consistent he and the others can depend on becomes a comfort. Changbin worked out every single day, not just occasionally or when he felt like it. Every day, in every city, no matter how tired he was. Just like Lino, it was something comforting he could fall back on. It was something that allowed him to clear his mind, something that was available in every city they stayed in. These were survival strategies for them, because when you're performing 55 shows across 5 continents in less than a year, your body isn't just a vessel for the performance. It's the thing most likely to break first. However, this exhaustion wasn't just physical. Performing a nearly identical setlist 57 times creates a strange kind of mental strain. It's not boredom. When 40,000 people are watching, you can't afford to be bored. It's kind of hard to describe. The choreography becomes muscle memory. The show feels automatic, and that's exactly when your mind starts to drift. And drifting on stage, even for a second, is dangerous. When you're unaware of what's happening, you can lose focus and make detrimental mistakes in front of all those people. That mental fatigue doesn't stay on stage. Like I mentioned, the shows blur together. The hotel rooms and cities blend into one another. And then you find yourself back at the hotel trying to remember what you said during the last encore, or which city you're even in. Later in the tour, Ian filmed himself wrapped in a blanket talking about the day's concert, but his camera didn't record audio. When he tried to dub over it later, he stared at the footage of himself talking and said, "Looking at the video now, I think I was sharing my thoughts on the show, but I can't really remember what I said. Probably something like, the concert was fun. There were some things I wish went better, but overall, it was really fun. What was I even saying? I don't remember." He literally couldn't recall his own thoughts from a few hours earlier. The shows had blurred together so much that even the distinct moments couldn't be separated anymore. It wasn't just about forgetting small details. It was about losing the ability to distinguish one performance from another, one city from the next, one day from the last. When everything becomes a continuous loop of airports, hotels, sound checks, and stages, your sense of time breaks down. And that kind of mental fog doesn't just disappear when the tour ends. And then there's the pressure of consistency. Every single show has to look like the first show. The fans in Sao Paulo deserve the same energy as the fans in Seoul. The fans on night 2 deserve the same performance as night 1, even though you're physically more exhausted. The audience on show 47 gets the same commitment as show 1, even though your body is begging you to hold back. That means you can't have an off night. You can't call out from it. You can't give just 80% when you're tired, because someone in that audience saved for months to be there. That level of mental focus, where you're delivering peak performance quality night after night, show after show, regardless of how you actually feel, is its own kind of exhausting. It's why Bangchan's organization routine was so important. In Bangkok, he filmed himself unpacking his suitcase, organizing every item with meticulous precision. Toiletries lined up, clothes folded and sorted, everything in its designated place. He spent so long on it, he had to stop and acknowledge how extreme it looked. "This is why I sleep late," he said, laughing at himself. "Don't live like me. Don't live like me. Don't live like me." He said it 3 times. Because the obsessive organization wasn't about staying neat. It was about desperately grasping for control. When your schedule is dictated by flight times and venue availability, when your sleep is constantly disrupted, when you're in a different country every few days, the small chance of organizing a hotel room becomes a way to create order in the chaos, something familiar you can resort back to. This is what it actually takes to sustain a tour of this scale. It's not just ambition, but also a relentless daily commitment to keeping your body functional when everything about the schedule can wear it down. And even then, it's not always enough, but they found ways to survive it. During a tour as intense as DominATE, the moments to pause are meaningful breaks that allow the members to recharge in their own ways. With nearly a year on the road, it's essential that the members get to rest and explore the area. These breaks help prevent burnout, give their bodies a chance to recover, and give the members space to stay grounded as individuals. Everyone has their own way of spending downtime. Some prefer solo time, others hang out in pairs, and sometimes the whole group sticks together. As I mentioned earlier, Bangshan finds comfort in familiar things. On tour, he swam at night, met an old friend in Sydney, visited family, and met with his sister in San Francisco. But even then, he rarely steps away from music. He often brings his laptop and writes or produces music whenever he has a free moment. For Chan and the other 3RACHA members, making music is more than just work. It's a way to relax and connect with something they love, even in these unfamiliar places. In the San Francisco vlog, we actually see 3RACHA meeting up in Chan's hotel room to work on music together. Other members used off days to explore new places and their individual hobbies. Seungmin took the chance to shop for jerseys in different cities, something we've seen him do consistently throughout the North America leg. Hyunjin visited local museums, attended galleries, and continued painting and sketching in his hotel rooms. Lino and Han shared a relaxed breakfast before the show. Well, they call it breakfast at least, but they slept in so late that it really could be considered brunch. Anyways, there's a physical side to these breaks too. As we saw earlier, several members go to the gym to maintain their stamina and clear their minds. For quite a lot of them, gym time has become a regular off-day routine. And then there's the quieter downtime, playing video games, passing around plush toys, or just hanging out together backstage. These small moments help the group stay connected and avoid burnout, because touring can get lonely, and even just sitting silently with each other helps reset their energy. Some members recharge best alone, others enjoy being surrounded by the group, but regardless of how they spend their breaks, what matters is that they're taking one. These moments of rest, even if they're brief, are essential, not just for their bodies, but for their minds and spirits too. Truthfully, it's a reminder that Stray Kids are more than just these figures we see that perform endlessly. Beyond the stage, they're real people who get tired and feel stressed. And as people, they need time to breathe and exist outside of the spotlight. Idol life is incredibly hard work. They're expected to keep up a perfect image constantly, so taking breaks to heal mentally on top of physically, it's crucial. Another way they avoid burnout is by mixing up their shows and avoiding performing the exact same thing throughout the whole tour. They're always pushing to evolve it. Across the many months of the DominATE tour, the group continually upgraded and tweaked the production, keeping things fresh not only for the fans, but for themselves. What started in Seoul looked very different by the time the tour reached Brazil or Los Angeles, and that's the whole point. From early on, the setlist was a flexible structure. Several changes were made throughout the tour, often reflecting new releases, fan preferences, or simply the desire to keep things fresh. One of the most noticeable shifts came in the solo stage section. While each member originally had a solo track, these were eventually rotated out in favor of unit stages, allowing them to showcase newer songs and deliver more engaging performances. Encore songs are also rotated. Haven is a favorite Stray Kids have used, performing it at the majority of the stops, with Starlost not far behind. Megaverse, which started as a surprise encore at certain shows, was eventually added to the official setlist in full. These kinds of adjustments not only keep the members engaged, but also added a layer of unpredictability for fans. Even though they try to make each show equal, no two shows were truly the same. They let each night feel special in its own way. These small touches honored the global fan base while keeping the spirit of DominATE alive. This is why they do it. Not for the numbers, though the numbers are staggering, and not for the records, though they broke plenty. They do it because for all the exhaustion, the injuries, the sleep deprivation, the relentless grind of moving from city to city, there's still this awe-striking moment where 40,000 people sing your lyrics back to you. The moment where you can somehow feel connected to everyone in the room. Even though each person comes from a different place, a different background, they're all here tonight for the same purpose, seeing you, because you matter to them. And with that in mind, they feel energized to serve the people that look up to them the best that they can. At the finale in Incheon, they stood on stage and looked at the crowd filling the stadium, and Lino says, "A diamond is nothing without the light that shines through it. And if we're the diamond, then Stay must be the light. You are our light." But it's not just the stays that got them through it all. Hyunjin continued, "When I was really struggling, I often asked Seungmin for advice, leaned on him, and learned a lot. And my vocal teacher, who helped me bring back my voice, is here today. His voice is cracking while speaking. I really want to say thank you so much." Stray Kids evolved, learned, and connected in ways that left a mark on every stage and every stay they met. The impact this year of touring left will certainly carry far beyond the final show. But it came at a cost. The kind of cost that you don't see in ticket sales or revenue. The kind that lives in 17-hour sleeps, in therapy rooms, in hotel mattresses that hurt your back. The kind that you carry in your body long after the final encore. And when the tour finally ended, they didn't just stop. Within days, they were back in the studio. Less than a month after the main tour concluded, they released Karma and began extensively promoting the album. But even as their bodies were still recovering, the impact of what they'd accomplished was undeniable. DominATE was the biggest tour in K-pop history, and this is what it took. If you want to see what Stray Kids comebacks are really like, you can click the video on screen. Thanks for watching. Bye 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 bye.